The Deception. Commander Maya Chen stared out the viewport of Concord Station, watching as another fleet of Terran Alliance warships departed for the front lines. Their sleek hulls gleamed under the light of the distant star, weapons systems dormant but ready. 3 years of bitter war with the Kryvax Imperium had transformed humanity from the Galactic Council's newest member into one of its most formidable military powers. Maya sighed, turning away from the view. As humanity's senior diplomatic envoy to the Council, she had attended too many emergency sessions, reviewed too many casualty reports, and drafted too many statements of resolve. The war had begun suddenly. A Kryvax attack on a human research outpost near contested space, and had escalated beyond anyone's expectations. Commander Chen, her AI assistant's voice came through her neural implant. "You have an urgent message from Dr. Reyes. Security Protocol Obsidian." Maya frowned. Elias Reyes was the Alliance's lead cryptographer attached to her diplomatic mission, and Obsidian Protocol meant the message couldn't be trusted to any network, no matter how secure. "Tell him I'll meet him in Secure Room 3 in 10 minutes. When Maya arrived at the small, windowless room deep within the human section of the station, Reyes was already there, his usually composed face drawn with tension. The room was swept for surveillance devices every 6 hours, and all electronic communications were blocked by a quantum interference field. "This better be important, Elias," Maya said, taking the seat across from him. "I found something disturbing," Reyes replied, sliding a data crystal across the table. 3 days ago, we intercepted a Kryvax transmission that didn't match any of their known encryption patterns. It took me until now to crack it." Maya inserted the crystal into her secure tablet. "And it's not a military communication. It appears to be a conversation between Kryvax officials and someone else, someone giving them instructions about the war." Maya's eyes narrowed as she scanned the decrypted text. "This can't be right. It reads like stage directions." "Exactly." Reyes leaned forward. "They're being told where to attack next, what to say in their public statements, even how many casualties to report." "Who sent this?" "I don't know," Reyes admitted. "The origin is masked better than anything I've ever seen. But there's more." He tapped the tablet, bringing up another file. "I started digging through our own classified communications, looking for anything similar." Maya's blood ran cold as she read the new document. It detailed instructions for the next Terran Alliance offensive, not from Alliance Command, but from the same mysterious source that was directing the Kryvax. "Someone is orchestrating both sides of this war," she whispered. "There's only one way to confirm this," Reyes said grimly. "We need to access the Galactic Council's secure archives. They maintain original copies of all diplomatic communications. If these instructions are going to both sides, the Council might have intercepted them too." Maya shook her head. "The archives are restricted to Council elders only. We'd need someone with your clearance to create a distraction while someone with my skills slices into their system." Reyes finished. "I already have a plan." 2 days later, Maya stood before the Council, delivering an impassioned speech about increasing humanitarian aid to war-affected sectors. All 57 representatives of the Galactic Council species were present, their attention focused on her. Meanwhile, Reyes and Lieutenant Nasir, a former Alliance intelligence operative now attached to Maya's staff, were making their way through the restricted sections of the station. "The suffering of civilians on both sides cannot be ignored," Maya continued, watching the subtle indicator on her neural implant that showed Reyes' progress. "The Terran Alliance proposes a 30% increase in medical supplies to all affected systems, regardless of which side controls them." The Kryvax representative, a tall, mantis-like being named High Commander Vextor, bristled. "The Imperium rejects this transparent attempt to curry favor with our citizens. The Alliance started this war. They cannot now pose as saviors." Maya had heard this rhetoric for 3 years. But now she wondered who had written those lines for the commander. The indicator flashed green. Reyes had succeeded. Perhaps we can discuss a compromise, she suggested, bringing her presentation to a close as quickly as she could without arousing suspicion. 3 hours later, Maya met with Reyes and Nasir in Secure Room 3, along with Dr. Imani Washington, the station's senior human medical officer whom Maya trusted implicitly. "What did you find?" Maya asked. Reyes' face was ashen. "It's worse than we thought. The Council has been intercepting these communications for at least 2 years. They've compiled them in a classified file called Puppet Master Protocol." Nasir, a compact woman with sharp eyes, added, "They know the war is being orchestrated, but they've chosen to observe rather than intervene." "But why?" Dr. Washington asked. "The Council's primary directive is maintaining peace." "Because they don't know who's pulling the strings," Reyes explained, "and they're afraid. But we found something they missed." He displayed a complex data pattern on the room's holographic projector. "There's a hidden signature in these communications. It's subtle, but it's consistent. And I've seen it before, in transmissions from the Nexus Consortium." Maya felt her stomach drop. The Nexus Consortium was ostensibly a neutral trading organization, comprised of members from dozens of species. They controlled vast resources and maintained the largest merchant fleet in the galaxy, but had always claimed political neutrality. "You think the Consortium is orchestrating a war between humanity and the Kreveks? That's insane. What would they gain?" Nasir brought up a star chart. "Look at the territories that have changed hands during the war. Notice anything?" Maya studied the map, and the patterns slowly emerged. Resource-rich systems, mining operations, rare element deposits. "Exactly," Nasir confirmed. "And who moved in to help maintain essential infrastructure in all these systems after they became contested territory?" "The Consortium," Maya whispered. "They're creating a war to seize resources that neither side can effectively control during the conflict. And the Council is letting it happen because the Consortium has members and influence in every major Council species," Reyes added bitterly. Maya paced the small room, mind racing. "We need proof, irrefutable evidence that would force the Council to act. And we need to find a way to contact the Krivaks directly, outside of official channels." "I might be able to help with that last part," Dr. Washington said quietly. "I've been treating a Krivak's prisoner of war. He's a scientist, not a soldier, and he's been asking questions about the war that suggest he has suspicions of his own." Maya nodded slowly. "Bring him in, carefully. We need to know if there are others on the Krivak side who might have discovered the truth." "And the evidence?" Reyes asked. Maya's expression hardened. "We follow the money. Every orchestrated conflict, every staged battle, every resource acquisition. The Consortium has to be keeping records somewhere. We find those records, we expose the truth." "And then what?" Nasir asked. "Even with evidence, the Consortium's influence runs deep. Then we take the truth directly to the people fighting this war," Maya said firmly. "Human and Krivaks alike. No one wants to be a puppet in someone else's profit scheme." As they began formulating their plan, Maya glanced again at the departing warships through a small window in the corridor outside. How many would never return? How many had already died for a lie? The weight of the truth settled heavily on her shoulders, but with it came resolve. The war was a lie, and now humanity knew. Soon, everyone else would too. The conspiracy. The Krivak scientist, Quetzalcoatl, shifted uncomfortably in the human-designed chair, his segmented exoskeleton clicking softly as he adjusted his posture. The secure meeting room felt crowded with 5 humans and 1 Krivaks, but Maya had insisted on keeping their circle small. "You risk much by bringing me here," Quetzalcoatl said, his translator rendering his chittering speech into smooth, accented standard. "If my superiors discover this meeting, we're all taking risks," Maya replied. "But we need to know. What made you suspect the war isn't what it seems?" The Krivaks' compound eyes flickered, their equivalent of a thoughtful blink. I was analyzing debris from destroyed vessels for technological intelligence. I found abnormalities in the damage patterns. The weapons' signatures didn't match what we were told. In some cases, the damage appeared staged. Rise leaned forward. Staged how? Precise detonations in non-critical systems. Ships that appeared destroyed by your weapons, but with intact central cores. And then, Quetzalcoatl hesitated. I found communication devices in the wreckage. Advanced technology, neither human nor Kryvax. Maya exchanged glances with her team. Can you identify this technology? Not with certainty, but it bears similarities to consortium transmission arrays I've studied. When I reported my findings, I was reassigned and warned not to continue my research. 2 colleagues who assisted me disappeared. Lieutenant Nasir nodded grimly. Classic containment protocol. They're silencing anyone who notices the discrepancies. Do you have access to Kryvax diplomatic channels? Maya asked. Limited, but yes. My family holds influence in the scientific directorate. We need to find others like you, Kryvax, who question the war's narrative. Can you help us establish secure communication? The alien scientist's mandibles clicked in what Maya had learned was a gesture of affirmation. There is a growing faction within our scientific community that questions our leadership's decisions. We call ourselves the Truth Seekers. I can connect you. Over the next week, their investigation accelerated. Through Quetzalcoatl's contacts, they identified a dozen high-ranking Kryvax who harbored doubts about the war. Meanwhile, Reyes and Nasir worked tirelessly to track consortium financial movements. It's ingenious. Really, Nasir explained during one of their secure meetings, displaying complex transaction flows on the holographic projector. They're using the war to acquire resource rights at a fraction of peacetime costs. Both sides are so focused on the conflict that they're practically giving away strategic assets. But where's the proof that they're orchestrating the fighting, not just profiting from it? Dr. Washington asked. Reyes brought up another display. Here, we've traced communication patterns between supposed Kryvax attack sites and consortium vessels in the vicinity. In 78% of reported battles, consortium ships were present shortly before fighting began. That's correlation, not causation, Maya noted. True, but we've also identified 7 consortium executives who've made extraordinary profits from the war. One in particular, Directorate Chairman Severus Vane, has quintupled his wealth since hostilities began. Maya nodded. Focus on Vane. If anyone has the influence to orchestrate something this massive, it would be the Directorate Chairman. The next breakthrough came unexpectedly. Dr. Washington was treating a human soldier suffering from neural trauma when she discovered something alarming. He has implants, she reported to the group, her voice tight with controlled anger. Subtle neural modifications that don't appear on standard medical scans. They allow for remote suggestion, not mind control exactly, but the ability to plant ideas, heighten aggressive responses. Are you saying some of our soldiers are being manipulated? Maya asked, horrified. I've checked records of other casualties with similar behavioral patterns. At least 30 confirmed cases, all Special Forces operators who were involved in key operations that escalated the conflict. Lieutenant Nasir's expression darkened. We need to check if the Kryvax have similar cases. They did. Quetzalcoatl confirmed that several Kryvax commanders involved in pivotal battles had undergone loyalty enhancement procedures prior to their deployments. The consortium isn't just manipulating information, Maya realized. They're manipulating people, creating the perfect instigators on both sides. But why? Dr. Washington asked. Even with resource acquisition, the scale of this deception seems excessive. The answer came from their Kryvax allies. A high-ranking truth seeker called Vex Mala had infiltrated her government's classified archives and discovered references to something called the Ascension Protocol. It is not merely resources they seek, Quetzalcoatl explained after receiving Vex Mala's encrypted transmission. The consortium believes they have discovered technology that would grant them overwhelming power, perhaps dominance over the entire council. But activating this technology requires enormous energy and specific rare elements. Elements found in the contested systems, Reyes concluded. Yes, and the war provides cover for their extraction and transport. They are building something that would shift the balance of power permanently. Maya stared at the star map showing contested territories, seeing the pattern with new clarity. They're not just profiting from the war, they are using it as a smokescreen for something bigger. We need to find out what they're building and where, Nasser said. Their investigation narrowed to a remote system at the edge of contested space, officially a neutral research outpost managed by the consortium, but with suspiciously heavy security and enormous energy readings. That's where we'll find our answers, Maya decided. And our evidence. Planning the infiltration took another 2 weeks. They needed a way to access the facility without alerting the consortium or their respective governments. The solution came from an unexpected source. Admiral Harrison, Maya's former commanding officer and mentor. Maya had taken an enormous risk by approaching him, but they needed resources only someone of his rank could provide. After reviewing their evidence, the Admiral had sat in stunned silence before uttering a single profound obscenity. 30 years in service, he'd said finally, and I never imagined how many have died for this charade. Now, aboard a small, unmarked vessel designated for diplomatic contingencies, Maya's team made final preparations. The ship, officially decommissioned but secretly maintained by Admiral Harrison, was equipped with advanced stealth technology and a skeleton crew of trusted officers. The facility's security systems are formidable, Reyes explained, reviewing the infiltration plan with the combined human Kryvax team. 3 truth seekers had joined their mission, including Vex Mala herself, but they're designed to repel military attacks, not a small covert team with inside knowledge. Quetzalcoatl indicated a schematic of the facility. The central data hub will contain the records we need. Once inside, we can access their complete operational history and broadcast it to every ship and station in both fleets, Nasir added. Maya surveyed the unlikely allies gathered around the tactical display, humans and Kryvax, working together while their peoples continued to fight and die in a manufactured war. The irony was bitter. We launch in 6 hours, she announced. Rest while you can. Once we begin, there's no turning back. As the others dispersed, Vex Mala approached Maya, her towering form making the human commander look up to meet her gaze. You understand, the Kryvax said quietly, that even if we succeed, the damage is done. Our peoples have suffered real losses, felt real hatred. Maya nodded solemnly. Yes, exposing the truth won't end the pain, but it might prevent more. There will be those who refuse to believe, Vex Mala continued. Those who have invested too much in the narrative of enemy and hero. Then we'll need to be very convincing, Maya replied. And we'll need leaders on both sides ready to forge a different path forward. The Kryvax made the clicking sound that passed for grim laughter among her kind. If we survive this mission, Commander Chen, I believe you and I may find ourselves with unexpected new careers. As their ship slipped away from Concord Station under the cover of a routine supply departure, Maya thought about the thousands of human and Kryvax ships engaged in battle across dozens of systems. Soon, they would learn that their real enemy had been pulling the strings all along. And then the real war would begin. The revelation. The consortium research facility hung against the backdrop of a nebula like a metallic spider in its web. Officially designated Outpost Helios, its true purpose was hidden behind layers of corporate bureaucracy and security protocols. As their stealth vessel approached, Maya studied the structure through the tactical display. Those aren't research modules, she observed, pointing to large cylindrical structures extending from the central hub. They're energy conduits. And those, Vex Mala added, indicating heavily shielded compartments, are weapons emplacements disguised as sensor arrays. This is no research station. Their infiltration plan relied on forged credentials and a calculated risk. Reyes had created identities for them as consortium inspection personnel, while Quetzalcoatl and his fellow truth seekers would pose as CRYVAC scientists recruited for specialized analysis. The deception would only hold under cursory examination, but it might get them inside. Outpost Helios. This is Transport Echo 79er requesting docking clearance. Lieutenant Nasir transmitted, using the consortium commercial protocols they'd acquired. Verification code follows. There was a tense pause before the reply came. Transport Echo 79er. We have no scheduled inspections at this time. Maintain position for identity verification. Now, Reyes, Maya ordered. The cryptographer activated a specialized transmission that inserted their falsified credentials directly into the station's security network. It was a sophisticated hack that would buy them minutes at most. Transport Echo 79er. Clearance granted. The controller responded after a moment. Proceed to Docking Bay 4. As they approached the docking bay, Maya addressed the team one final time. Remember, we need irrefutable evidence of the consortium's manipulation of the war. Our priority is the central data hub. If we're compromised, the secondary objective is to reach the communication center and broadcast what we already know. The docking procedure went smoothly. Too smoothly, Maya thought. Either their deception was working perfectly, or they were being allowed to enter. Neither possibility was entirely comforting. They split into two teams once aboard. Maya led Reyes and one of the CRYVAC's truth seekers toward the data hub, while Vexmala, Nasir, and Quetzalcoatl headed for the communications center as backup. Each team carried a quantum data module containing all their evidence thus far, ready to broadcast if necessary. The corridors of the facility were eerily quiet, with few personnel visible. Those they passed gave them curious glances, but didn't challenge their presence. The lack of security personnel was concerning. Something's wrong, Maya murmured as they approached the data hub. This is too easy. As if in response to her concern, an alarm began to sound, not the blaring security alert they had feared, but a facility-wide announcement. All personnel, proceed to emergency shelters for safety drill. This is not a combat situation. Repeat, proceed to emergency shelters. They know we're here, Reyes said grimly. They're clearing the facility to deal with us. Then we move faster, Maya decided. The data hub should be less guarded now. They quickened their pace, reaching the data hub entrance just as the last technicians were leaving for the emergency shelters. Maya's falsified credentials granted them access, and they slipped inside, securing the door behind them. The hub was a vast chamber filled with processing units and holographic displays. At its center stood a quantum computer core, pulsing with energy. I need 10 minutes, Reyes said, connecting their decryption devices to the main console. You have 5, Maya replied, keeping watch on the entrance. Reyes worked feverishly, bypassing security protocols and accessing the facility's true operational directives. Data flowed across his screens, revealing the scope of the consortium's deception. It's all here, he announced, his voice tight with controlled anger. Battle plans provided to both sides. Falsified intelligence, staged provocations, everything we suspected and more. Download it all, Maya ordered. There's something else, Reyes continued, his expression growing more troubled. Project Ascension. It's gods. Maya, they've discovered technology from a precursor civilization. Technology that can manipulate space-time itself. What does that mean in practical terms? It means they could potentially control who has access to faster-than-light travel. They could isolate planets, cut off entire species from the galactic community. Anyone who opposed them could be effectively quarantined. The ultimate leverage, Maya realized. No wonder they needed such elaborate cover to develop it. Their comms crackled to life with Nasir's voice. Commander, we've reached the communication center, but we have company. Consortium security forces are converging on your position. How long can you hold the comm center? Long enough to broadcast if necessary, but not much longer. Maya made a quick decision. Start the broadcast. Use what we have. We'll send the complete data once Reyes finishes the download. As Reyes continued his work, the main door to the data hub slid open. Maya raised her weapon, only to lower it in confusion. Instead of security forces, a single figure entered, a tall, elegant humanoid with silver-toned skin and eyes that shifted color like oil on water. "Commander Chen," the figure said smoothly, "I've been looking forward to meeting you. I am Chairman Severus Vane." Maya kept her weapon ready but not aimed directly at the consortium leader. "You don't seem surprised to find us here." Vane smiled thinly. "Very little surprises me, Commander. Certainly not the persistence of humans or Kryvax when they believe they've been wronged. Your investigation was noted some time ago. Then why allow us to get this far? Curiosity, perhaps, or perhaps I wanted to see if you were worthy of understanding the greater purpose behind what you call deception." Reyes continued his download, exchanging glances with Maya. She needed to keep Vane talking. "Greater purpose. You've orchestrated a war that has killed millions." Vane waved a dismissive hand. "A regrettable but necessary cost. The galaxy stands at a precipice, Commander. The technology we've discovered will determine the future of all civilizations. Would you rather it fell into the hands of the Council, with their endless deliberations and compromises, or perhaps your own species, barely a century into interstellar travel, as opposed to the Consortium, which has shown such moral restraint?" Maya countered. "We represent all species, Commander. We transcend the petty nationalism that divides the rest of you. Our leadership is based on merit, not birth or political maneuvering. Your leadership is based on wealth and the willingness to sacrifice others," Maya corrected. "And now we have proof." For the first time, Vane's composure slipped. "Proof that we'll never leave this facility." "Too late," Reyes announced, glancing up from his console. "The broadcast has begun. Every ship in both fleets is receiving the truth about the war right now." Vane's expression hardened. "A noble effort, but futile. Do you truly believe exposing our role will end the conflict? The hatred between your peoples is real now, regardless of how it began. And more importantly," he gestured, and the room's main display activated, showing a massive device being assembled in the station's central chamber. "Project Ascension is nearly operational." The device pulsed with energy unlike anything Maya had seen before, its core seeming to bend light around it. "Within hours, we will be able to selectively disable FTL capability across entire sectors," Vane continued. "Any world that rejects consortium guidance will find itself isolated. The war between humanity and the Kryvax will be irrelevant in the new order we establish." "You're talking about galactic tyranny," Maya said. "I'm talking about galactic stability," Vane corrected. "Something the Council has failed to provide." A sudden explosion rocked the facility, causing the lights to flicker. Vane's comm device activated automatically. "Chairman, we're under attack," a panicked voice reported. "Multiple vessels, both human and Kryvax signatures." Vane's eyes widened in genuine surprise. "Impossible. They wouldn't cooperate." "They would if they received our evidence," Maya replied, allowing herself a small smile. "It seems not everyone is willing to continue fighting a manufactured war." The facility shuddered again under another impact. Vane backed toward the door, his earlier confidence evaporating. "This changes nothing," he insisted. "Project Ascension will proceed. The future belongs to the Consortium." "I don't think so," said a new voice from the doorway. Admiral Harrison stood there, flanked by armed personnel wearing unmarked combat suits. "Chairman Vane, in the name of a joint human Kryvax provisional authority, you're being detained pending investigation for war crimes." Vane's face contorted with rage. "You have no authority here. This facility is Consortium territory." "Not anymore," the Admiral replied calmly. "As we speak, similar operations are targeting Consortium facilities throughout contested space. Your game is over, Chairman." As Vane was taken into custody, Maya's comm activated with Nasir's voice. "Commander, you need to see this." The data hub's displays switched to external views showing the space around the facility. Maya stared in amazement at the sight. Terran Alliance and Kryvak's Imperium vessels positioned side by side, weapons trained not on each other, but on the consortium station. Admiral Harrison nodded at Maya's questioning look. When your broadcast reached the fleets, both admiralties demanded verification. Once confirmed, an unprecedented joint operation was authorized. No one takes kindly to learning they've been puppets. And Project Ascension? Maya asked. Secure. Our engineers and Kryvak specialists are already working to understand and neutralize it. This technology is too dangerous for any single group to control. In the days that followed, the truth spread rapidly throughout human and Kryvak's territories. Initial disbelief gave way to outrage, then to a tentative willingness to communicate. The war didn't end immediately. There were those on both sides who refused to accept the revelation, or who had genuine grievances beyond the consortium's manipulation. But the major fleet actions ceased, and diplomatic channels reopened. 1 month after the operation at Outpost Helios, Maya stood in a newly constructed chamber aboard Concord Station. Unlike the formal Galactic Council chamber, this room was designed for direct dialogue, with representatives from Earth and Kryvak's seated as equals. Vex Mala sat across from her, leading the Kryvak's delegation. The Provisional Peace Committee will now begin its 5th session, Maya announced. Today's agenda includes discussion of joint security measures for former contested systems and humanitarian aid coordination. As the discussion proceeded, Maya reflected on how quickly everything had changed. The consortium's influence had been severely curtailed, though not eliminated. The Galactic Council was undergoing its own reckoning, with several species demanding accountability for the Council's failure to intervene despite their awareness of the deception. Most importantly, humans and Kryvaks were talking, truly communicating, perhaps for the first time. The process was difficult, uncomfortable, and essential. Commander Chen, Vex Mala said during a brief recess, there is a human expression I have learned. Truth is the first casualty of war. In our case, the truth has been its last. Maya nodded thoughtfully. And its cure, perhaps. Maya nodded thoughtfully. And its cure, perhaps. Not a complete cure, the Kryvak's leader cautioned. The scars remain. But a beginning. Outside the viewport, ships from both fleets conducted joint exercises. Not war games, but humanitarian supply runs to worlds damaged in the conflict. It was a small step, but symbolic of the changed relationship. The war had been a lie, but the peace, difficult and fragile as it was becoming real. And in that reality lay hope for something neither humanity nor the Kryvaks had anticipated when they first encountered each other. A genuine alliance born from shared deception and mutual resilience. In the end, Maya reflected, that might be the greatest victory of all.